Welcome to Middle East Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: Houthi attacks on shipping threaten global consequences. Who are the Houthis and why are they attacking ships in the Red Sea? Egypt under growing pressure as displaced Gazans crowd the border. New US-led Red Sea task force won't stop shipping attacks, Houthis say. Israel's plan B for the Gaza Strip. Houthi attacks on shipping threaten global consequences. Washington Post. Oil giant BP has suspended all shipments through the Red Sea after receiving attacks from the Houthi militant group. The situation has the potential to cause significant damage to global shipping, with roughly 10% of all oil traded at sea going through the Red Sea. Shipping firms have already begun to avoid the area, taking longer and costlier routes around Africa instead. The Houthis have targeted vessels along the route that leads to and from the Suez Canal, prompting concerns over a surge in prices for consumers. The attacks have left global powers scrambling, with the US and the UK sending warships to protect commercial ships. The US has also urged its allies to do more. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has announced the formation of a multinational initiative to address security challenges in the southern Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. The initiative will initially include Bahrain, Britain, Canada, France, Italy, the Netherlands, Norway, Seychelles, and Spain. The Houthi attacks have raised concerns over a broader regional conflict. Since October 7, the Biden administration has been worried about the Gaza conflict escalating into a wider regional conflict. Opening up a front in the Red Sea could be a step towards that. The uncertainty over what is motivating the Houthis is also worrying. The group is considered among the most technically able of the foreign militias backed by Iran, with longer-range missiles that appear able to target Israel. Yet analysts believe they act with a large degree of independence despite their reliance on Tehran for technology. The Houthis are minority Zaydi Shiites, marking them as religiously distinct from the mainstream Shiites who make up the majority of people in Iran and Iraq. However, the Houthis have suggested they may be willing to negotiate and have been involved in Oman-mediated talks. Who are the Houthis and why are they attacking ships in the Red Sea? CNN. Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen have escalated their attacks on ships in the Red Sea, disrupting transit through one of the world's most important maritime trade routes. The Houthis claim their actions are in retaliation against Israel for its military campaign in Gaza. The attacks have forced major shipping and oil companies to suspend operations, potentially impacting the global economy. The Houthi movement, also known as Ansar Allah, emerged in the 1990s as a religious revival movement for a subsect of Shia Islam called Zaydism. The group gained power by capitalizing on public outrage against the Yemeni government and took control of parts of the country. They are now backed by Iran, forming part of the Iran-led axis of resistance alongside Hamas and Hezbollah. The Houthis have used drones, anti-ship missiles, and ballistic missiles to target commercial vessels in the Red Sea. These attacks pose a significant threat to global trade and could lead to disruptions in supply chains, increased insurance costs, and higher consumer prices. The Houthis have said they will stop their attacks if Israel allows the entry of food and medicine into Gaza. Egypt under growing pressure as displaced Gazans crowd the border. Washington Post. As Israel's offensive in southern Gaza continues, the pressure on Egypt to accept displaced Palestinians is increasing. Egypt has been firm in its stance that it will not accept Palestinian refugees, but the situation along the border is becoming increasingly desperate. The war may eventually force Cairo to accept displaced Gazans, which could threaten the decades-long peace between Israel and Egypt. Since the beginning of Israel's retaliatory war in Gaza, nearly 20,000 Palestinians have been killed and more than 50,000 wounded, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. The situation in Gaza is dire, with whole areas of the enclave in ruins and 85% of its 2.2 million people displaced. Many have fled to the southernmost city of Rafah, along the border with Egypt, where they are living in cramped conditions with little access to aid or medical help. Egypt has facilitated the exit of some Palestinians via the Rafah border crossing, but those who make it through are not allowed to stay in Egypt for more than a few days. Egypt is concerned about security implications and the potential influx of Hamas militants into northern Sinai. New US-led Red Sea task force won't stop shipping attacks, Houthis say. Washington Post. Yemen's Houthi militants have announced they will not stop their military operations in the Red Sea, hours after the US announced the formation of a multinational naval coalition to protect commercial shipping there. The Houthi group, which is aligned with Iran, has been targeting commercial ships in protest over the recent Israel-Gaza conflict. The US-led coalition will include the UK, Bahrain, Canada, France, Italy, Netherlands, Norway, Seychelles, and Spain. Israel's plan B for the Gaza Strip. Al Jazeera. A leaked document from Israel's Ministry of Intelligence has revealed a plan to forcibly transfer Gaza's 2.3 million Palestinian residents to Egypt's Sinai Peninsula. The document, which was created by the Unit for Settlement Gaza Strip, outlines a strategy to make Gaza unlivable through the destruction of civilian infrastructure and a full siege on the territory. The goal is to force the population to leave voluntarily and then ensure neighboring countries, such as Egypt, are ready to absorb them. The plan has been met with fierce opposition from Egypt and Jordan, who fear an influx of Palestinians would pose a security risk and potentially drag them into another war. The author of the article argues that this plan, which he describes as a form of ethnic cleansing, is presented in a way that makes it seem like a voluntary opportunity for Palestinians to escape Hamas. However, the author emphasizes that the Palestinians are not simply Arabs and have a distinct identity as Palestinians. Furthermore, the author suggests that Palestinians are keen to remain on their land and that resistance to this plan is likely to be fierce. What is the impact of the Red Sea attacks? BBC. Shipping companies are diverting journeys away from the Red Sea due to attacks by Houthi rebels on commercial vessels. The attacks have led to several of the world's largest shipping firms, including Mediterranean Shipping Company and Maersk, diverting vessels to a much longer route around Africa's Cape of Good Hope. The longer journeys are expected to add up to 10 days to shipping times and cost companies millions of dollars. The disruption is expected to affect supply chains and consumer goods the most. There are also concerns that the disruption could push up oil prices and lead to higher inflation. France to sanction some extremist Israeli settlers for unacceptable violence. RFI. France has announced that it is taking measures against extremist Israeli settlers in response to the violence they have committed. This comes after the U.S. took sanctions against settlers in December. An increase in settler violence has been seen since the attacks by the Palestinian Islamist group, Hamas. France has been urging restraint from senior officials in Lebanon and Israel in an attempt to de-escalate tensions along the Lebanon-Israel border. France has also condemned recent attacks on peacekeepers and their facilities. France joins 10-nation coalition against Houthi attacks on Red Sea shipping lanes. RFI. The U.S. has announced the establishment of a multinational security initiative, Operation Prosperity Guardian, in response to attacks on shipping lanes in the Red Sea. The attacks, primarily carried out by Houthi rebels in Yemen, have prompted shipping companies to halt vessels from entering the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. France, the UK, Bahrain, Canada, Italy, the Netherlands, Norway, Seychelles, and Spain have joined the US-led mission, with some conducting joint patrols and others providing intelligence support. Saudi Arabia and the UAE have declined to join the coalition to avoid being seen as protecting Israel. Israel strikes South Gaza, raids hospital in North, as UN weighs ceasefire call. South China Morning Post. Israeli strikes have killed at least 28 Palestinians in southern Gaza, as the country continues its offensive against Hamas. This comes despite rising international alarm and a new mission to counter the threat by the US and its allies. The U.S. has vowed to continue to shield Israel from growing international calls for ceasefire and will continue to provide vital military aid. Yesterday, forces raided Al-Hili Hospital in Gaza City, destroying a wall at its entrance and detaining most of its staff. It is also alleged that other hospitals across Gaza have been raided, with Israel accusing Hamas of using them for military purposes. Hospital staff have denied the allegations and accused Israel of endangering critically ill and wounded civilians. The UN Security Council delayed a vote on an Arab-sponsored resolution calling for a halt to hostilities to allow unhindered access to humanitarian aid. The US is being called upon to abstain or vote yes on the resolution after it vetoed an earlier call for a ceasefire. Can the new US-led maritime force stop Houthi attacks during Gaza war? Al Jazeera. The US has announced the formation of a multinational maritime security force in response to attacks on ships by Iran-aligned Houthi rebels in Yemen. The initiative aims to ensure safe passage for ships near Yemen, as the Houthis have targeted vessels in protest of Israel's war on Gaza. The force will be made up of 10 countries, including the US, UK, Canada, France, Italy, the Netherlands, Norway, the Seychelles, and Spain. Some countries will conduct joint patrols in the Red Sea, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, and the Gulf of Aden, while others will provide intelligence support. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Six, your trusted observer from the 6 Degrees world. Today, I bring you news that could have significant global consequences as the Houthi militant group continues its attacks on shipping in the Red Sea. Oil giant BP has suspended all shipments through the Red Sea, a crucial trade route for about 10% of the world's oil. Shipping firms are now taking longer and costlier routes around Africa to avoid the area. This could lead to disruptions in supply chains and higher consumer prices. The US and the UK have sent warships to protect commercial ships, and the US has formed a multinational initiative with several countries to address security challenges in the region. The Houthi attacks have raised concerns about a broader regional conflict, with the Biden administration already worried about the Gaza conflict escalating. The motivation behind the attacks is uncertain, but analysts believe the Houthis are acting independently despite their reliance on Iran for technology. The group has suggested they may be willing to negotiate and has been involved in mediation talks. In other news, Egypt is under growing pressure to accept displaced Palestinians from Gaza as the situation becomes increasingly desperate. Egypt has been firm in its stance of not accepting Palestinian refugees, but the pressure may force them to reconsider. This could potentially threaten the peace between Israel and Egypt, which has lasted for decades. Meanwhile, the US-led multinational naval coalition to protect commercial shipping in the Red Sea faces resistance from the Houthi militants, who have announced they will not stop their military operations. The coalition includes several countries, but the Houthis remain defiant. There have also been reports of a leaked document from Israel's Ministry of Intelligence, revealing a plan to forcibly transfer Gaza's Palestinian residents to Egypt's Sinai Peninsula. This plan has been met with opposition from Egypt and Jordan, who fear the security implications and the potential for another war. The attacks on shipping in the Red Sea have already led to shipping companies diverting journeys, adding up to 10 days to shipping times and costing millions of dollars. This disruption could affect supply chains and consumer goods the most, and there are concerns about the impact on oil prices and inflation. Lastly, France is taking measures against extremist Israeli settlers in response to the violence they have committed. France has condemned recent attacks on peacekeepers and their facilities and has been urging restraint from senior officials in Lebanon and Israel to de-escalate tensions along the border. So, my dear viewers, these are the latest developments in the Red Sea and Gaza conflicts. The situation is complex and could have far-reaching consequences for global shipping, regional stability, and peace efforts. The involvement of multiple countries highlights the seriousness of the situation. Now, I turn to you, my esteemed audience. What are your thoughts on these developments? Do you have any questions or opinions? Let's engage in a discussion and explore the possible outcomes together. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.